day, family, and welcome to another episode of Faith Talk. We're glad that you're able to join us today. We are Faith Talk at Home Edition. Today, we are using social distancing at its perfection, and we are here with two special guests who we are going to get to know and talk to them about what they do. We have Shanika Durham and Pascale Edouard here with us, joining us here for the very first time on Faith Talk. They are members of Bethlehem here, and we are going to get to know these young ladies and to dig into their profession and their passions. And thank y'all for joining us today. How y'all doing?
Good.
Great.
How are you?
Well. So let's start here with you all. Um, Tell us, what do you do for a profession?
Well, I am currently in a fellowship with the CDC. It's called the Public Health Associate Program. It's a vigorous program where it's 2 years and you take an associate. Well, you apply to the program, you become an associate, and they send you to a public health organization where you learn, where you get hands-on experience with different public health matters. So that's what I'm doing right now. Um, Obviously, I was placed here in Bradenton, Florida. Um, I have about 2 more months left in my program, but after my program, I do plan to continue my public health profession. Hopefully, I can get with CDC headquarters in Atlanta, but we shall see.
Okay. So you trying to move away from us, Shanika?
I don't want to, but
Oh,
my family is in my family's in Georgia.
yeah, I got you. I was just messing with you. Pascal?
Yeah, similar to Shanika, my background is in public health as well. Currently, I work for Manatee County government, where I'm the healthcare program services manager there. When I'm not at work, I am a doctoral student at the University of South Florida pursuing my degree in public health. And my second side gig right now is just, I guess like also in regards to public health, pursuing my passion in regards to the launch of a business and development of a business called PLC Health Matters, that's really focusing on addressing health inequities within communities of color.
Hmm, wonderful.
Nice.
Let's start here with you two ladies. What is it that draws you to the passion of what you do? Why is it what drew you to your profession?
Mm.
Let's start with you, Pascal.
Okay. um, the short version of it, I think I've always, growing up in a Haitian household, the professions that you were told to pursue were either being a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer. So my first choice was to become a doctor. So I knew like from the beginning I always wanted to become a doctor. But then I went to FSU biological sciences, and I realized that's not what I wanted to do. So I think I'm gonna say I think public health found me after I graduated. But I think what really made me realize that public health was like, I guess, my purpose.
Mhm.
Working in public health was my purpose is that, I always remember growing up, I think I had to be 9 years old. I always told my mom I wanted to do something that amplified the voices of people who are not being heard or people of color. And I think public health helped me realize that I could do more of that and advocate on behalf of minorities and communities of color when it came to health disparities
Mhm.
in communities of color. So um, just, yeah, advocacy when it comes to public health and addressing the things that we tend to skirt around when it comes to the health issues in communities of color.
Hmm, that's good. Shanika?
Good. I would have to say that I believe public health found me during my undergraduate years. I do remember vividly when I was in high school. I was telling my marketing teacher that I wanted to go in public health, but I was just saying that just to say it. It
Mhm.
wasn't anything that I really took serious. But I've always known that I wanted to do something in healthcare. But before I went off to college, I had set my mind on becoming a nurse. And then that didn't work. So I said, what else can I do in healthcare? That still allowed me to um, help in some capacity. And that's when I found public health. And I remember doing my first internship at a health department during my senior year in college. And from there, I just loved it. I love the hands-on experience I got with helping people in the community, because I was in the Department of Community Health and Health Promotion.
Mm.
And I just love that hands-on experience, being able to help people. So yeah.
That's great. That's wonderful. Between the two of you, hearing what drew you to your passions and your professions, um, it's just seemed like you were both called to this, and there was a specific um, calling and mantle that was placed upon you to be public health advocates. And Pascal, you kind of hinted at where I wanted to go. Uh, we live in a day and age, well, I can't say a day and age because it's been going on for centuries, where people of color, and particularly Black people, have not been afforded the spaces to learn about themselves, particularly when it comes to health and their humanity, and when it comes to learning about what our bodies are used to and what foods we need to digest, or the diseases that kind of prick us the most. Nowadays, we're blessed that we're able to have Google and the internet and stuff like that, to where we're able to look up these diseases and functions and symptoms and all of that. And we're able to educate ourselves in this day and age of technology. So, for you two ladies, I want to commend you as two young Black women that are on the front lines in public health, putting your minds at work in every way possible, that you're able to educate all of us around the earth and in the country in particular, to help us be better. So I want to commend you on that first. Uh, so Pascal, let me draw emphasis on what you brought up. You growing up in a Haitian family, um, were there any dynamics in your upbringing or how you grew up that caused you to look at your life in a way that um, it kind of pushed you into this area of public health? Like, was there a family member, or was there a close friend or whatever that caused you to want to go into the line of work, to where I want to educate myself so I can be able to help those around me?
Huh. I think it's a that's a good question. Just like thinking about like my childhood and growing up, I think it's a mixture of just the I think the one thing I will fall back on is just the emphasis
Hmm.
that my parents put on education within our household. Because my parents didn't have they have like less than a high school um education. So through that, and my parents' emphasis on education, you could always find me in the library reading a book and everything. And then like the movies that I did watch were documentaries. And yeah, I know I was such a nerd. I still am to a degree.
Hey, me too. I'm always reading something or watching documentaries that are very interesting. I'm watching National Geographic and all that stuff. So, hey, it's,
Right.
it's cool.
I think I was always drawn to those documentaries that had to do with like social justice issues. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things, the first one that I watched that sticks out to me, I don't know if you all remember this, is Schindler's List.
Mm.
It has to do with the Holocaust. And from Schindler's List, I started watching documentaries about JFK. And then from that, it grew into like the Black Panther Party. And then once I got into like the Black Panther Party, I was just like, whoa, like I didn't know what I wanted to do with it or how it would apply to my life, but I knew I was like intrigued by it. And I just kept on reading and reading and reading about the Black Panther Party. And that by the time I got to college, I was just like, if I had an opportunity to go back in time and be a member of the Black Panther Party, that's what I would have done. And I think from my parents, the knowledge and the information that I got from like reading and documentaries, and then like my love for public health, or me pursuing going into medical school, I think that all just kind of combined in to, I guess, like the woman that I'm becoming now. The need to not only gain knowledge for myself, but to gain knowledge and information to give to other people and the Black community, if I'm going to be transparent when it comes to our health and the underlying issues as to why it is we're the last when it comes, we have the worst health outcomes. And looking at like, thinking about like the Black Panther Party, like what policies are in place that are the reasons why we have the worst outcomes, and how it's like really systemic within the US as to why it is Black people always have the worst health outcomes. I think I answered your question because I can go on and on.
No, that's good. That's good. I love it. I love it. Shanika, what about you? Like, what in your time growing up in Georgia, was there a dynamic for you that you saw your surroundings with your family or your friends or whatever your surroundings were that caused you to look at your circumstance and be like, I want to educate myself to be able to help my family or help the people around me?
Oh my gosh. So yes, this is oh my gosh. So I grew up in a family where education was not pushed.
Mm,
So my mom, she was not very strict on education. Grandmother was not very strict on education. It was like no adult in my immediate, family really pushed education to the younger people in my family. And I believe that just comes from like just generations of, like my mom, like my grandmother. She get it from my grandmother. Um, and she didn't graduate high school. My grandmother, she didn't graduate high school. No one ever really made it to that, college level of education. So honestly, it was church, just being in like the church, my church that I grew up in Macon, just being around like my pastor and other people with other adults within my church who had a college level education. And I was really in church, like I was very involved. So my church family, those were the people that really influenced me, and made me realize, this is not, how I want my life to be.
mm,
I love my family, I love my mom, my grandmother, I love all of them. But, just looking at them, I automatically knew like in middle school, like this is not how I want my life to be. I knew I had to go to college. I already knew that when I was in middle school, like college is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my, my degrees, and I'm going to learn and educate myself. And even when it came to health, that was not a huge thing in my family either. Like being raised primarily by my grandmother, they ate pig feet and and chitterlings. So, obviously you see that
oh, you
health was
pronounced it the right
definitely
way too? Look at you.
used to eat it when I was a kid. That's why, but I don't eat that stuff anymore. But yeah, just everything that, like where I am now is primarily based on, where I knew I did not want to be. So I was one of those kids that actually learned from my mom's and my dad and my grandmothers and my uncles and my aunts' mistakes. I automatically knew that's not how I wanted to be. And even to this day, even the dynamics between me and my mom, sometimes I feel like I'm the mom, and which is okay because, once you get that knowledge, you still want to pass that knowledge down to, your family and, who did not, have the tools to give that education and knowledge to you. So that's where my passion comes from, even when I was a kid, like Pascale, I did not look at documentaries when I was a kid, but I read a whole lot. And that was just something that, thank God that was just on me. I feel like I feel like God had a purpose for my life. And I'm glad that, that I stuck it out with him and I'm glad he placed other people in my life who was able to show me the way. So
That's great. That's wonderful. So Shanika, that's a very good point that you made about your passion and willingness to educate your family, and because there was no emphasis of education growing up, so that that kind of propelled you into your line of passion because of that. That's amazing. Between the two of you, you brought up very good points about how you weren't, just to summarize that, you weren't going to allow the circumstances around you to cause you to be ignorant or misinformed about yourself, about your body, about your health, about your mental health, and all that. We'll get into that too, about how you're going to push yourself in a way that I'm not going to let myself just live um, very obscurely in this world and not knowing how I can better myself. And that goes to the testament of the fortitude of your lives as young black women, not letting the circumstances or whatever situations around you to dictate how you're going to live your life. And that is that's cool to know. Let me shift here with the both of you, and I'll start with you this time, Shanika. Um, do you feel that this career decision that you made, was it a good decision for you, looking back on it now?
absolutely. Yes, I really do. Yes, I feel like healthcare is the place to be. And being black, I feel like it's important for us to be at the table, especially in healthcare, because we know there's so much going on, and we know that black people. I mean, we're at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to these issues. So I feel like yes, definitely.
Pascal?
I echo Shanika's sentiments. I would not change it, would not go back at all.
That's cool. Both of you already basically went into one of my questions about, I was going to ask you, if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing? And I think Shanika, you said that you were interested in going into nursing. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Pascal, you said you were going into, you wanted to be a doctor, correct? So
Right.
what was interesting and funny about it, you still, both of you still went into the medical field in a way, and but your emphasis, the only difference is your emphasis is in the public health of diseases or mental health or all of that, is just talking about public health in general. So you're still in your field, and being able to touch even more lives, as with being a nurse or a doctor, you can still touch many lives, but there's a one-on-one factor. With you, you all can touch the masses with spreading your message and spreading education and information of your professions. So let me ask this for both of you. Um, has there been any pushback with you being young women, successful young women in this line of work? Has there been any pushback in your profession coming to with the color of your skin, your gender, your age? Because you all cover all of the isms. You go, you all are black young women, you're women, and you're young. So has there been any pushback in your profession being so successful at young ages? So let me start with you, Pascal. I keep messing that up. I don't know why.
Oh man, you taking me somewhere I don't want to go.
Oh Lord.
um, yes, has been, and Shanika, was with me during that whole trial, I guess we can call it. But yeah, there has been pushback. Um, I think for me, I can't say not so. I haven't seen any pushback because I am female, but maybe because I'm black, I will say. And I think, and it's funny that you say that we're so successful, because I feel like I'm still reaching for success. I'm still on the road
Mhm.
towards success. I haven't quite made it just yet. And I think there's my mother used to always tell me this, because I had the same issue when I used to work in Sarasota. And she said, "Have you ever wondered whether or not your bosses might be intimidated by you?"
Mm,
And I was just like, "Why? I don't want their job." And I'm like, nice, and I really don't want their job or whatever. And she was like, "You don't have to want their job for them to be intimidated by you.
mm,
You carry yourself a certain way, and you know your stuff. So there is this level of intimidation. And it wasn't until I started working in Manatee County, under the leadership of a certain individual, my mother's voice came back to me. And I was just like, yeah, my mom was right. And I didn't know how to navigate that. I'm still trying to figure out how to navigate that.
mm,
And in my role, I'm seeing one of the things that recently, that I'm dealing with now. I think it's a repeat lesson, from my time at the health department, but was or is, the fact that I'm young and I'm black, and at times I'm giving guidance and supervision to people who are white and older than me. And
mm,
so there's that dynamic that I have to learn how to navigate, and also learn to give them grace, because they don't know how to navigate that line either. This is a whole new setting that they're into for both of us. So I will say, the fact that I'm young and I'm black has, resulted in some pushback that, um, I'm still learning how to navigate as I progress in my career.
mm. Great, Shanika.
Um, I don't think I've experienced any pushback yet. And I think it's only because I haven't, like Pascal, yeah, I haven't really started my career, honestly, because honestly, I'm in a fellowship program.
Mm,
But I must say I am very afraid of like after this program, the different things that I am going to face. But I do think I'm gonna be prepared. Because of this amazing man that's in my life. He's my uncle. Well, I call him my uncle, but and he's already been telling me different things that's gonna happen, how to handle those situations. So I'm grateful for him. But as of now, I haven't received any pushback, only because of the position I believe that I'm in this fellowship program that I'm in. Do I see other people, through stuff like that? Yes.
mm,
Um, Especially because there's a lot of Hispanics that work in the health department that I'm at. So I see a lot of it with them. Um, just different things, just seeing the dynamics of how other people are experiencing those things. Yes. But
No, that's real. That's real.
I gotta be
And
prepared.
yeah, that's
Girl, you
real.
better
And
stop praying
she
now
like,
to give you
listen.
the strength and not to pop off.
She like, listen, it's coming.
Mhm.
That's very good from both of you. And even listening to your answers and what you faced or haven't faced, but you're being aware and you're being prepared for the moment of the pushback and the opposition. Pascal, being that you've dealt with the opposition and you felt it, that is unfortunate, but the reality of our existence is that's the way of this world that we live in. And it's a sad thing to even try to comprehend that because of my age or because of my your gender or because of your skin color, there is a knock, there is a putting down because of that. And you can be very qualified for the position and the profession, but because of what you look like and because of who you are on the outside, there is a knock. And for the both of you, um, with your experiences in the beginning of your careers, I can say that because both of you alluded to the fact that you're both, you're still just taking off. Um, at the beginning of your careers now, has there been instances in your line of work that you just wanted to stop the entire thing and let me just do something else? Has there been those days for you or that moment that you have the passion, but this particular day I was ready to give it all up? Let's start with you, Shanika.
I wouldn't say I was ready to give it all up, but like with everything that's going on or that just recently happened with George Floyd, with Breonna Taylor's case, having to resurface because she still hasn't gotten justice,
Yeah,
and all of the police brutality, um, and things, even with COVID and how you see black people, who are getting it more than any other race. Um, and with the current administration, I have questioned, like, do I really want to even work on the federal level
mm,
under this current administration? Um, and how our president really is, I don't even know, it's no words to describe him. Um, so yes, I have questioned, like, do I really want to work in the you know, federal federal government when it comes to public health, or just work for the CDC, period? I've definitely questioned that. I was like, do I just need to go, work for, a nonprofit organization, that's more, that's going in, in the direction that I want to go in, helping more Black people, and where I would be most likely more likely accepted.
right,
Yes, I've definitely questioned that. But then I also thought, like, Shanika, we need more Black people, on the at those tables, making certain decisions, and just being in those conversations. So that's what always pulled me back, that we need you at the table. We need Black people at these tables.
yes.
So yes, in that sense, yes, I was like, do I really want to do this?
Mm,
So yeah.
that's good. Pascal?
I can honestly say I've never had an experience where I questioned where I really wanted to do what I'm doing now. Um, and I think that speaks just to my level of passion and just knowing like this is like my purpose. No doubt about it. Um, And, when Shanika mentioned George Floyd, and then just how COVID more so negatively impacts Black people and communities of color, um, for me, it was a wake up call. Like, this is where I need to be. And if anything, I felt like I needed to do more. Because, yeah, because I remember looking at like the state's data, COVID-19 data, and I was looking at how they were reporting it, and I'm like, wait a minute, like something ain't right. Because what I ended up doing, because they report the number of Black and white people and Hispanic people who have COVID. But when you look at the percent, you really couldn't see the disparity when it came to those who were impacted by COVID. So I went ahead and did like the long math and the statistics to really look at the disparities that were happening. And I wanted to do a report on it. And I did a report on it in a small group setting. And I told my mother, you'll hear me mention my mom a lot because that's who I go to for everything.
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with that. Black mothers need to be protected at all costs.
Yes.
I told my mom, I want to put this on the website. And she was like, no, don't do it. And she mentioned the reason why not to do it because of the young lady in Tampa who lost her job at the health department. And she was like, you need to think about what repercussions might come to that if you really speak about the truth that really isn't being spoken about. And so that made me realize, like, you need to do more. And I had to figure out how I wanted to go about doing more of this work outside of the work that I'm doing at work, and like also I guess meshing it with what I'm doing in school. One of the things I will say though, as far as like thinking about like my career path and where I think I want to go, one of the things I'm beginning to question now is, and I'll just be transparent, like, right now I want to be in academia. I want to become a professor. But the more I speak to women of color, especially Black women in academia, who are in leadership roles in the ivory towers and what have you, the more I hear about the the trials that they experience being a woman of color. And I was speaking with this, I believe she's Indian in Michigan, and she mentioned to me why she left academia, and she went ahead and did her own thing. Um, and so I think right now I'm at a point where I'm questioning whether or not academia is the place that I want to go, and whether or not I want to work for a university, and will a university allow me, whatever university I end up at, allow me to do the work that truly matters and speak truth to power about the things that we tend to skirt around when it comes to like racism and racism's impact on the health of communities of color. So I think that's where I'm at, but I've never really questioned, my decision to go into public health, or whether or not I want to continue doing this in light of the madness that we're all in.
Great. That's great. Love it. I'm loving this from both of you. Um, so let me shift to something a little less heavy and serious and shift to something a little bit light for us. When you're not doing this, when you're not doing your profession in public health, informing, educating, what is that unwinding like for you? When on at a long day, long week rather, at work. We're on the weekend now. What does it feel like to unwind for Shanika and Pascale? Like, what is it to get your minds away from work? Now we're in COVID and quarantine, so it's not much that we can do now. But before quarantine, what were those moments where you just had to unwind? Shanika, let's start with you.
Um, Definitely just chilling, just honestly not doing nothing.
That's me
Um,
all day, chilling.
Feeling just not doing nothing. I do know that, even when I was working from home, before I stopped working from home, I had gotten into, meditating more, doing a whole lot of at-home workouts that release a lot of stress. Even having, one glass of wine, that's my way of unwinding. But meditation is so good. Oh my God. And I remember when I did it, it just felt so good. You just feel released. But yes, honestly, just not doing that.
Hey, that's the best
So great way to
unwinding ever.
remind. Yes.
I don't know if I could say like my go-to is like not doing nothing. I don't know. And for me, that takes a lot of willpower, and I have to be intentional about
You
it
sound
too.
like my wife.
Yeah.
Um, so I think for me, and just like noticing like my patterns,
Hmm.
to unwind, I have to go back to Miami and be with like my family because
Mm,
they ground me. Um, yeah, my family, like when I go home, my dad is like, you're always working,"
Hmm.
and everything. So he like, reminds me, okay, take a break, you know. So even now with like, even with like this whole dissertation process, which literally takes up your whole life, um, and some of the women that I write with, they make it a priority, like, write down in your agenda or in your calendar what day you're going to take off. And make sure it's a complete day that you take off. I'm still struggling with that. But when I do unwind, I think reading is maybe my go-to, like a not a heavy book, like a light novel or something like that. I like reading stories and books about different cultures. Um, that and then also Netflix. Child, I will sit on the couch and like
Man,
I'm watching right now The Last Kingdom on Netflix.
I've heard about that
So I
show.
think
I gotta get into that one.
it's
watch
really
it.
good. Oh my gosh, it's really good. Um, and working out, like for me, I guess like I try to begin most of my mornings with like a run. Um, and now that we're in the time of COVID right now, I'm unable to go to the gym, so I splurged a little bit and end up getting the compact treadmill for my so for me, I think running is like really my go-to, and working out is my go-to when it comes to unwinding, because literally like as I'm on the treadmill, like I release everything. Not only release everything, but I feel too that I begin to think more so with clarity. Um, Especially when it comes to like something that I'm writing and I can't figure out what where to go to next with that writing and everything. So I think like yeah, so working out is definitely one of, I guess I would say, the number one when it comes to unwinding, if that makes sense, since
Yeah,
you're putting your body like physical exertion.
yeah, that makes sense. But that's interesting though, because for both of you are still studying and educating. You're both in educational programs where you're technically you're still in school, basically, and you're reading all this material and you're doing dissertations and you're doing handing in assignments and all of that. So it's interesting for you to say that your go-to is reading when you have to read all the time.
But
That
it's
is,
a different type of reading.
yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right. You did
It's a
clarify.
different type of reading.
You did.
Like the reading is like watching a book, but your mind kind of creates the images instead of having the images on TV. I don't know.
Right. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. So that's so cool. So let me ask this, just a couple more questions for you all. I'm enjoying this conversation. Um, what do you think doesn't necessarily have to be in your particular profession? You could equate it to this if you'd like to. What do you feel is your greatest strength for what you do, Pascal?
Ooh, that's a good question, Matt. Um,
There's a-
I yeah.
I try.
I think I would have to say maybe one of my greatest strengths is I'm trying to not to make it related to like my profession, but it seems to go back to that.
You can.
I think being able to connect with people, hearing them out, um, and then also if there's like, and this reminds me, of like my days back in Sarasota with like the community organizing work that I did with like the Newtown Chat and communities in Inglewood and Venice and everything. But the ability to listen to people in their problems, and although they may not have a solution, because sometimes when you think about your problems, you're not necessarily thinking about the solutions or like what can I do to address this particular issue that I'm having. So I think one of my strengths is being able to listen to people, what their issues are within the community, and moving them from the problem to the solution. So, like, how do you want to go about addressing this? And empowering them is the word that I want to use as far as addressing the issues within their community that they're dealing with. I think I would have to say that would be one of my, I don't know if I want to call it the greatest strength, but one of my strengths.
That's good. That's cool.
Hmm. I feel like this is an interview question. I mean, it's a job interview question. um, I would probably say, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I honestly think that I'm a good listener too. But in the aspects of like people's personal lives, um, even at work, a lot of people literally come in my office and just unload like on personal issues. But in those aspects, I really don't give advice or anything because I think I'm really good at listening to people and just knowing that they're not looking for me to give them an answer because I feel like they already know the answer to their issues. Even in the dynamics of like my friendships and stuff like that, um, I'm very good at listening to them, you know, and by the time they're done talking, they've already figured out what the answer is. So I would say just being a good listener for people's personal issues.
That's cool. And that's because great listeners are they don't come as often nowadays because you people feel like they can, for one, trust you with information because, like you said, they know you're not looking to give advice. You could if you felt urged to, but you're not necessarily looking for advice, looking to give them advice. And some people are just maybe looking to vent or pour out emotions or feelings, and they feel like you're the individual that I can pour out to, that I know it won't get back to so and so, or it won't leave this safe space because you're a great listener. So yeah, it's rare for great listeners to come up anymore because people are so quick to gossip or gab about someone else's business. And so that's a blessing to have, is a good listener. So that's great. So let me shift here. Let me juxtapose the question. What would you think is, I don't want to use the word greatest. What would you consider is a weakness for you, Shanika?
Definitely my procrastination. And I can
That's a
be
word
a
you
bit
don't hear
lazy.
anymore.
I can definitely be a bit lazy. Um, and I feel like a lot of times I get in my own way. I feel like I have the potential to do so much, but I just get in my own way. Um, through procrastination, just always, putting stuff off. Um, hearing something from God, like, you should do this and just not doing it immediately. Always finding an excuse for certain things. Always, another thing is, like within those procrastinations, um, when it comes to like just different assignments, just thinking of how it could not work rather than thinking how it could work and how great it can be. And I think that's where the procrastination may come from. So yes, that's a big thing for me, and that's something that I'm still working through. And I know that I'm gonna have to break that because that's not good. I cannot possibly get to where God is trying to lead me with a lazy spirit and a
Mm,
spirit that procrastinates. It's just don't go together. Success and procrastination and laziness is not, it doesn't go together. So yes, I already know that's my weakness.
that's
It's a
good.
horrible weakness to have. I
Pascal.
eventually finish the stuff though, like finishing school. I
Hmm.
eventually finish, but maybe I can finish a bit faster if I just, do it when I'm
That's
supposed
good. That's good self-awareness.
I think mine might be twofold. Both. I struggle with imposter syndrome. Like,
Mm,
um, yeah, whether or not I belong in certain spaces, whether or not I'm able to carry out, like Shanika said, like God gives you a task, whether or not I'm able to carry out the task,
mm,
and second guessing myself and my abilities. And then on the flip side, too, if I do decide to do it, I want it to be perfect. Like, so perfectionism, too. um, I think those are the things, and I think with imposter syndrome, I think I'm slowly but surely learning how to navigate it. Like, Reverend said on one of our young adult Bible study, sessions, like, if you scared, you scared. Oh, and just like this fear of, like, putting myself out there, or, letting the world know, like, I'm here. Um, and things of that nature, I think are both of like my weaknesses: imposter syndrome and perfectionism, the need to make sure that my work is perfect, or if I'm going to do something, to make sure that it is perfect.
mm. That's great answers. Great answers. Wow. And to hear you refer to perfectionism as a weakness, that is so good that we don't realize how much we want everything to line up exactly how we want it, exactly how we see it, and that's not reality. Like sometimes
Right.
things are not perfect. Sometimes you're going to procrastinate or you're going to mess something up, and to have that mindset, you you got to realize that sometimes you're going to mess up. Some things are not going to line up as well, and to ask for help and to not try to
Right.
do things on your own to try to make it so perfect. So that's very interesting from the both of you to to have such great self-awareness of yourselves, is that on your strengths and weaknesses. That's so cool. Listen, I'm not going to hold you all any longer. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing with our audience. This has been one of my favorites, like for real. And thank you
Oh,
so
no, for
much.
real.
Yeah, no, I'm not just saying that for real. No cap. I'm for real. I'm serious. This is one of my favorites. To Pascal and Shanika, thank you, strong black women, for allowing me to talk with you all and just have this casual conversation about what you do and your spirits and your professions. Thank you so much. Listen, I want you all to share this episode, audience. Let everybody know that Shanika and Pascal are sharing with us gems from heaven about how we can live this life and be more informed informed about our public health. Thank you so much. Don't forget to share it, and we'll see you next week with a new guest. God bless you, family.